Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked at someone successful and wondered, how did they get there? Was it luck? Was it talent? Was it some big breakthrough that changed everything overnight? The truth might surprise you. Most people don't achieve their dreams because of one giant leap. They achieve them because of small, consistent steps taken day after day. The secret of consistency is simple, but it's not easy. And yet, it's the one thing that separates dreamers from achievers. Think about a drop of water. On its own, it seems weak, powerless. But when drops fall steadily, over time, they carve valleys, they shape mountains, they form rivers. Consistency is just like that. Small actions, repeated faithfully, create results that feel impossible at first. We live in a world that celebrates big wins. Headlines scream about overnight successes, lottery winners, viral stars. But you don't see the countless hours of practice behind the athlete, the lonely nights of writing behind the author, or the years of saving behind the wealthy investor. Success rarely happens in a flash. It grows slowly, like a seed becoming a tree. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter was accepted. Did she stop at rejection number 3? No, she stayed consistent. She kept writing, she kept submitting, and her small step of persistence eventually created the biggest book series of our time. Or think about Thomas Edison. When asked how he felt about failing thousands of times to create the light bulb, he said, "I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work." Every failure was a small step forward. Every attempt was proof of consistency. And eventually, those steps lit up the entire world. But let's bring this closer to your life. Imagine you want to get healthier. You don't need to run a marathon tomorrow. Just walk 10 minutes today, then 15 minutes the next day. Imagine you want to build wealth. You don't need millions in the bank right now. Just save a small amount this week, invest it, and do it again next week. Imagine you want to start a business. You don't need to launch a giant company overnight. Just start with one idea, one customer, one sale. The problem is, most people quit. They stop showing up. They take a few steps, don't see immediate results, and convince themselves it's not working. But consistency isn't about instant gratification. It's about planting seeds that take time to grow. The oak tree doesn't sprout in a day. Neither will your dream. So ask yourself, are you willing to take the small steps no one sees? Are you willing to keep showing up when the results are invisible? Are you willing to trust the process even when the reward hasn't arrived yet? Because here's the secret. The small steps no one claps for are the very steps that one day everyone will admire. The quiet efforts, the daily grind, the unseen hours, those are the foundation of big dreams. Consistency is not glamorous. It's often boring. It's repetitive. It feels too small to matter. But small steps compound. They build momentum. And momentum builds dreams. Think about it. Your life today is a reflection of the small steps you took yesterday. And your life tomorrow will be built by the steps you choose to take today. So choose wisely. Choose to show up. Choose to keep going. Choose consistency. One day, people will look at you and say, "Wow, how did they do it?" And you'll smile because you'll know the truth. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It wasn't one giant leap. It was the secret of consistency. It was the power of small steps building a big dream. So take your step today, however small it seems, because it's never just a step. It's the start of your dream. Here are some key points related to this. Big dreams are built on small, consistent steps, not giant leaps. Consistency is more powerful than talent, luck, or instant success. Every small action compounds over time to create massive results. Failure is not the end. It's part of the process of consistent growth. Your daily choices determine your future. Success is built in the quiet moments. The secret to achieving dreams is showing up every day, even when no one notices. When you think about big dreams, your mind probably jumps straight to the finished picture. The athlete standing on the podium, the entrepreneur who built a company worth millions, the artist whose work hangs in galleries, or the writer who sells millions of books. You see the glory, the applause, the celebration, the recognition. But what you don't see is what truly built that dream. And here's the truth that very few people talk about. Those big dreams were not built overnight. They weren't built in one huge leap of faith or one dramatic turning point. They were built brick by brick, small step by small step, day after day, in the quiet moments where no one was clapping and no one was watching. It's tempting to believe in the myth of overnight success because it sounds magical, doesn't it? The idea that one day you wake up and your life is transformed, that somehow luck or fate handed you everything you wanted in a flash. But if you look deeper, if you peel back the curtain on anyone who has achieved something extraordinary, you'll find the same story repeated again and again. It's a story of consistency, of tiny, almost invisible actions repeated until they became unstoppable momentum. Think of a mason laying bricks. At first, there's nothing but an empty patch of land. He lays one brick carefully, then another, to someone passing by. It looks like nothing more than a pile of bricks. Days pass, weeks pass, and still it looks like slow progress. But the mason doesn't stop. He keeps showing up, laying brick after brick. And then one day, a wall stands where there was once nothing. A little later, an entire house begins to take shape. And eventually, that house becomes a home, solid and unshakable. That's exactly how dreams are built. Not through one massive act of effort, but through the quiet, steady laying of bricks. Consider the story of Serena Williams. When people watch her dominate the tennis court, they see her power, her skill, her confidence. But what they don't see are the endless mornings she woke up before sunrise to train, the countless times she practiced the same serve, the same swing, over and over until it became part of her muscle memory. They don't see the days when her body ached, when she wanted to quit, when no crowd was cheering, and it was just her and the court. Her greatness wasn't built on the day of her championship wins. It was built in the thousands of small, consistent steps before that moment. Or think about a writer who dreams of publishing a novel. The idea of finishing 300 pages feels overwhelming, almost impossible. But if that writer commits to writing just one page a day, something magical happens. One page turns into 7 in a week, 30 in a month. And before they even realize it, they're holding a manuscript in their hands. That one page a day, repeated with consistency, transformed a dream into reality. The power of small steps lies in their ability to compound. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. You water it one day and nothing happens. You water it the second day, still nothing. Weeks go by, and you begin to wonder if the seed is even alive. But beneath the soil, unseen by your eyes, roots are forming, pushing deeper, preparing for growth. And then, one morning, a tiny sprout breaks through the dirt. It feels sudden, but it wasn't sudden at all. That sprout was a result of every drop of water, every ray of sunlight, every small, consistent action you took. Dreams are exactly the same. The results may not show immediately, but the small steps are working behind the scenes, building something powerful. Yet here is where most people give up. They take a few small steps, and when they don't see instant results, they stop. They think the effort isn't worth it. But that's like watering the seed for a week and then digging it up, saying it didn't grow. What if growth was just days away? What if the breakthrough was just one more step ahead? The tragedy is that so many dreams die not because they were impossible, but because people stopped too soon. Thomas Edison once said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." He understood that small steps, repeated consistently, build towards something bigger than we can imagine. Every failure he faced, every experiment that didn't work, was not wasted effort. It was another step, another brick, another drop of water carving its path. Think about your own life for a moment. What dream feels too big for you right now? Maybe it's starting a business, learning a skill, improving your health, or changing your financial situation. Whatever it is, I want you to imagine breaking it down into the smallest possible step. What could you do today that moves you 1 inch closer? It might seem tiny. It might seem insignificant. But that small step, if repeated, becomes a powerful force. Picture a staircase leading up to the top of a mountain. If you stand at the bottom and look up, it feels impossible. You can't leap to the top in one move. But you can take one step, then another, And if you just keep going, step after step, you will eventually find yourself at the summit, looking down at the very place you once thought was unreachable. That's the secret. That's the truth. Small steps, taken consistently, transform impossibility into achievement. The beauty of consistency is that it doesn't require perfection. You don't have to do everything right. You don't have to take massive leaps. You just have to keep showing up, keep moving forward, even when the progress feels invisible. And if you trust that process, one day you'll look back and realize just how far those small steps carried you. So when you see someone living the dream you wish you had, don't be fooled into thinking it happened overnight. Don't envy the finish line without respecting the journey. Their dream was built just like yours will be, one small, steady, faithful step at a time. When we talk about consistency, most people imagine it as a straight line. Start at the bottom, take steady steps upward, and eventually arrive at the top. But in real life, the path rarely looks like that. It's uneven, unpredictable, and often filled with moments of doubt where you wonder if your efforts are even making a difference. The truth is, consistency is not about speed. It's about rhythm. It's about building habits so ingrained that even when life throws obstacles at you, you still find a way to take that next small step forward. And that's what separates those who achieve their dreams from those who only talk about them. Think about a person learning to play the piano. At the beginning, their fingers stumble over the keys, the sound is awkward, and frustration sets in quickly. If they practice for hours one day and then give up for a week, they never improve. But if they practice for just 20 minutes a day, every day, something remarkable happens. Their fingers begin to move more smoothly. Their ears start to recognize the notes, and over time, their playing becomes fluid and natural. That's the quiet magic of consistency. It doesn't demand huge effort all at once, but it demands you keep showing up even on the days when progress feels invisible. Life gives us endless opportunities to witness this truth. Consider fitness. Someone who decides to get healthy often starts with massive enthusiasm. They go to the gym for 2 hours, push their limits, feel sore the next day, and then quit because it feels too hard. But the person who goes for a 30-minute walk every morning, even when they don't feel like it, eventually transforms their body and health. Why? Because the body responds not to sudden bursts of effort, but to the repeated signals of consistent action. It's the small, steady workouts that sculpt strength. It's the daily discipline of choosing water over soda or an apple over junk food that reshapes a life. The key lies in understanding that consistency builds identity. Every time you follow through on a small step, you're telling yourself, this is who I am now. A writer who sits down to write every morning, even if it's just 200 words, is no longer just someone who dreams of writing. They are a writer. A person who puts away a small amount of money every week, no matter how little, is no longer someone who hopes to save. They are a saver, an investor in their own future. James Clear once wrote, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become." And that's exactly what consistency does. It casts those votes over and over until your identity aligns with your dream. There's a story about a bamboo tree that illustrates this perfectly. When you plant a bamboo seed, for the first 5 years, nothing seems to happen. You water it, nurture it, care for it. And yet above the ground, there's no sign of growth. People may laugh. They may tell you to give up. They may say you're wasting your time. But underground, the roots are spreading wide and deep, creating a foundation strong enough to sustain the massive growth that's about to come. Then, in the 5th year, something extraordinary happens. The bamboo suddenly shoots up, growing over 80 feet in just 6 weeks. Did it really grow in 6 weeks? No, it grew in 5 years and 6 weeks. That's the power of consistency. The small, unseen actions you repeat every day eventually lead to explosive results, but only if you stay faithful through the invisible years. And this is where most people struggle, because our world is obsessed with speed. We want results now. We want shortcuts, hacks, quick fixes. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Shortcuts don't create lasting success. They create fragile success. Real, sustainable success is built through patience, persistence, and steady repetition. The athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, and visionaries you admire all had their bamboo years. The seasons where it felt like nothing was happening, but they kept watering their dream anyway. Imagine someone who wants to start a business. They open an online store, they put up their products, and for the first few weeks, nothing sells. Doubt creeps in. They wonder if they should quit. But what if they didn't? What if they kept improving their product, kept learning marketing, kept showing up day after day? At first, sales trickle in slowly. One here, one there. Then more people notice. Word of mouth spreads. Eventually, the business that once felt invisible starts thriving. And from the outside, it looks like sudden success. But it wasn't sudden. It was a reward of consistent effort meeting the right moment. There's also a hidden benefit to consistency that few people talk about. It builds resilience. When you show up every day, regardless of how you feel, you train your mind to push through resistance. You stop relying on motivation, which is fleeting, and instead build discipline, which lasts. Motivation is like a spark. It gets you started. But discipline is a steady flame that keeps the fire burning. And every time you honor your commitment, even in small ways, you strengthen that flame. Ask yourself this. How many times in your life have you given up on something not because it was impossible, but because you expected results too quickly? Maybe you tried eating healthier, but when you didn't see dramatic changes in a week, you gave up. Maybe you tried learning a skill, but because you weren't good immediately, you stopped. Imagine how different your life would look today if you had just kept going, if you had trusted the process instead of doubting it. The truth is, greatness isn't built in the extraordinary moments. It's built in the ordinary ones. It's built in the mornings you wake up tired but still show up. It's built in the nights you'd rather relax, but instead you practice, study, or take that one small action. It's built in the silence, when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when no one even notices. Because consistency is about faith. Faith that your small steps matter. Faith that your actions are planting seeds. Faith that one day, the roots will give way to growth. And when that day comes, when the results finally appear, people will call it luck or talent or timing. But you will know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't talent. It was the invisible work, the patience, the discipline, the unshakable rhythm of consistency. And in that moment, all the days you felt unseen, all the times you doubted yourself, all the tiny steps you thought didn't matter, will come together to form the dream you've been building all along. When people hear the phrase small steps, they often dismiss it. It sounds too simple, too ordinary, almost insignificant compared to the grandeur of their dreams. But the truth is, dreams are never built in giant leaps. They are built in the quiet repetition of tiny actions, compounded over time until they create something extraordinary. Imagine a child learning to walk. At first, they stumble, fall, cry, and try again. Nobody expects them to get up one day and run a marathon. We cheer for their tiny, wobbly steps because we know those steps matter. Yet, as adults, we lose that patience with ourselves. We expect perfection instantly. We forget that small steps are not just part of the journey. They are the journey itself. Think about building a house. You don't start with the roof. You start by laying one brick, then another, and another. At first, it doesn't look like much. It's just a pile of bricks and some mortar. But brick by brick, the walls begin to rise. Slowly, a structure takes shape. Eventually, what once looked like nothing becomes a shelter, a home, a dream made real. Consistency with small steps is the same process. The bricks are your daily actions, and the dream is a house. If you stop halfway, you'll just have a pile of scattered bricks. But if you keep going one step at a time, one day you'll stand in awe of the home you built with your own hands. History is full of people who embrace the power of small steps. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb in one try. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine if he had quit after the first 100 failures, or the first 1,000. Each test, each experiment, each tiny step forward brought him closer to the moment of breakthrough. It wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was the accumulation of thousands of small, persistent efforts that lit up the world. The same principle applies to your life. Maybe you dream of writing a book. Sitting down and writing 300 pages feels overwhelming, but writing 1 page a day feels possible. Do that for a year and you've got your book. Or maybe you want financial freedom. Saving thousands at once might feel impossible, but saving a few dollars every day, investing wisely, letting compounding work its quiet magic, over time, those small steps build wealth. Albert Einstein once called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Why? Because tiny amounts, repeated consistently, create massive results. Even in nature, small steps create big transformations. A river doesn't carve a canyon in a single day. It does so by flowing steadily, drop by drop, over centuries, shaping rock with persistence that no hammer could match. A mountain may look immovable, but even is eroded, reshaped, and transformed by the tiny actions of wind, rain, and time. If the smallest forces in nature can create such monumental change, why we doubt the small steps in our own lives? The struggle is that small steps don't feel glamorous. They don't get applause. Nobody cheers when you go for a short walk instead of skipping exercise. Nobody claps when you study for 15 minutes a day. Nobody notices when you choose to put $10 in your savings jar instead of spending it. But that's the secret. Success is built in silence, in the moments when no one is watching. Later, when the results appear, people call it success. But you will know it was those quiet, consistent steps that built your dream. There's a story about a man who wanted to climb Mount Everest. At first, he stood at the base of the mountain, overwhelmed by its size. It seemed impossible, but a wise guide told him, "You don't climb the mountain all at once. You just take one step, and then another. Focus on the step in front of you, not the peak." That's exactly how life works. If you look only at the peak, your dream, it will intimidate you. But if you focus on the step in front of you, you'll keep moving. And step by step, day by day, what once looked impossible becomes inevitable. We live in a culture obsessed with overnight success. We see headlines about people who became rich suddenly or famous in an instant, and we think that's the standard. But if you look closer, you'll find years, sometimes decades, of small, consistent steps that nobody noticed. Musicians practicing late at night, entrepreneurs failing and trying again, athletes training when no one else was watching. What looks like an overnight success is really the visible tip of an iceberg, supported by years of invisible effort below the surface. So why do small steps matter so much? Because they are sustainable. Big leaps require bursts of energy that you can't always maintain. But small steps can be repeated every day. They become habits, and habits shape who you are. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. That means greatness is not something you achieve in a single dramatic moment. It's something you build piece by piece until it becomes part of your very identity. Maybe today you feel stuck. Maybe the dream you carry feels too big, too far away. You tell yourself, "I don't know where to start." Start small. Start where you are. Write 1 page. Save $1. Take one step. Call one person. Read one chapter. Every great journey begins this way. And as you stack those steps, as you gather momentum, you'll look back one day and realize how far you've come. And here's the most powerful truth. Small steps not only build dreams, they also build belief. Every step you take proves to yourself that you are capable. Every action whispers, "You can do this." And over time, those whispers become a roar of confidence that carries you forward. Success doesn't come from waiting for the right moment. It comes from creating the right moment through steady action. So the next time you feel discouraged, remember this. It doesn't matter how slowly you go, as long as you don't stop. The dream doesn't demand perfection. It only demands persistence. Keep taking those small steps, no matter how insignificant they seem, because one day they will lead you exactly where you've always wanted to go. There's something powerful about showing up every single day, even when you don't feel like it, even when progress seems invisible, even when the voice in your head whispers, "What's the point?" That is the heart of consistency, and it is where real transformation is born. Too many people wait for motivation to strike before they act. They wait for the perfect mood, the right energy, or some magical spark to push them forward. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Discipline, however, is steady. Discipline is the act of showing up when you don't feel like it. Discipline is what turns an ordinary person into someone extraordinary over time. Think about an athlete training for the Olympics. They don't just train on the days they feel inspired. They train on the days they are sore, tired, and discouraged. They train when it's raining, when it's cold, when they would rather stay in bed. What separates them from everyone else is not talent alone. It's a decision to show up daily, regardless of their feelings. That steady rhythm creates a foundation that talent alone could never sustain. Small, repeated actions in the face of resistance create champions. There's a story about Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian, that illustrates this perfectly. When asked how he became so good at writing jokes, he shared a simple system. He had a big wall calendar and a red marker. Every day, his goal was to write at least one joke. When he finished, he marked a red X on the calendar. After a few days, a chain of red X's started forming. His only job was simple: don't break the chain. Some days he wrote amazing jokes. Other days he wrote terrible ones, but it didn't matter. What mattered was showing up. Years later, that consistency turned him into one of the greatest comedians of all time. And that's the hidden truth. Progress doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like repetition, like quiet effort, like doing the same thing over and over until it becomes part of who you are. A writer writes daily, even when the words don't flow. A musician practices scales, even when no one is listening. A business owner works behind the scenes, even when no sales are coming in. It's in those invisible, unglamorous moments that greatness is forged. But here's the challenge. When we don't see immediate results, our minds tell us to stop. We think, I've been trying for weeks, months, and nothing has changed. We expect transformation to happen quickly. But growth works in silence. It's like planting a seed. You water it every day, yet for a long time, you see nothing but soil. It's easy to believe nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading, foundations are forming, and then one day, a small green sprout breaks through. Consistency is a watering of that seed, even when you can't see progress. Without it, the seed dies. With it, life begins to emerge. Imagine someone learning to run. The first day, they barely make it around the block. They're out of breath, their muscles ache, and discouragement sets in. If they stop there, the story ends. But they run again the next day, and the next, even if it's only for a short distance, their body begins to adapt. Weeks later, they run a mile. Months later, they run 5. Eventually, they cross a marathon finish line. The marathon wasn't achieved in a single leap. It was built in every small run, every drop of sweat. Every day they laced up their shoes when they didn't feel like it. The Japanese have a word for this philosophy, kaizen, which means continuous improvement through small, consistent actions. It's the belief that greatness is not about massive, sudden change, but about steady progress over time. Businesses in Japan transformed themselves through this principle, focusing on tiny improvements every day that eventually compounded into world-class success. The same principle applies to our personal lives. The question is not, can I change everything today? But what small thing can I do today and then do again tomorrow and the day after? Think about the people you admire most. Their success might look dazzling now, but behind the scenes were years of repetition, discipline, and quiet effort. The author who wrote a best-selling novel didn't write it in a weekend. They wrote a few pages a day, often rewriting and deleting, until years later a masterpiece was born. The entrepreneur who built a thriving company didn't make millions overnight. They worked long hours, faced failure after failure, and showed up day after day until momentum finally caught fire. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. You will have days when you stumble, when you miss, when you fail. But the beauty of consistency is that it welcomes you back. Missing one day doesn't ruin the dream. It's only when you stop altogether that the dream dies. Think of it like brushing your teeth. If you miss once, nothing terrible happens. But if you stop altogether, decay begins. In the same way, small, consistent habits protect your dreams, strengthen your progress, and keep you moving forward even through setbacks. It's worth asking yourself, what could your life look like a year from now if you just showed up every day, even in small ways? What would your health look like if you exercise for 15 minutes daily? What would your knowledge look like if you read a few pages of a book every evening? What would your finances look like if you saved just a little every week? The truth is, the difference between who you are and who you want to be is found in what you choose to repeat. And when the time comes that you finally see the results, people will call it success. They'll ask you how you did it. They'll say you're lucky, talented, or gifted. But you'll know the real answer. It wasn't luck. It wasn't talent. It was a decision to keep showing up. It was a power of consistency. The quiet persistence that turns small steps into big dreams. And that is the secret most people overlook. Not the dramatic moments, but the daily ones. Not the giant leaps, but the steady steps. Success belongs to those who are willing to water the seed, even when nothing seems to be growing, because they trust that one day the roots will break through the soil and the dream will finally rise. Most people think the biggest obstacle to their dreams is a lack of resources, money, time, connections, or talent. But if you look closely at those who actually make their dreams come true, you'll notice something striking. They didn't start with everything in place. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They started where they were with what they had, and they moved forward anyway. The real secret isn't in having it all figured out. It's in refusing to quit when things get hard, in refusing to let setbacks define you, in holding on when the easier choice is to walk away. Think of Thomas Edison, who is remembered today as one of the greatest inventors in history. His dream of creating the electric light wasn't met with instant success. He failed thousands of times. Most people would have given up after the first 100 failures, let alone 1,000. But when someone asked him why he kept going despite so many setbacks, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset, seeing setbacks not as dead ends but as steps forward, is the essence of persistence. And it's persistence, not perfection, that builds dreams. There's a story about a man who wanted to strike gold. He bought land, gathered his tools, and began to dig. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, but he found nothing. Discouraged, he sold the land and walked away. The next man who bought the land decided to keep digging. Just 3 feet from where the first man had stopped, he struck one of the richest gold veins ever discovered. The lesson is haunting. How often do we stop just short of the treasure? How often do we quit when we are only inches away from the breakthrough we've been working toward? The truth is, persistence is the bridge between small steps and big dreams. Consistency keeps you moving, but persistence keeps you alive when the journey gets hard, when progress feels slow, and when results don't come as quickly as you hoped. It's easy to be consistent when things are going well, when the feedback is positive, when you feel strong and motivated. But real persistence is tested in the silence, when the applause fades, when no one is watching, and when you wonder if your effort even matters. That's where most people give up, and that's where the few who persist separate themselves from the rest. Ask yourself, how many times have you stopped when you were close? How many times have you let discouragement rob you of what might have been just around the corner? What if you had pushed through one more day, one more step, one more try? That's the haunting question persistence answers, because those who persist eventually discover what lies beyond the wall that stops most people. And here's the beautiful part. Persistence doesn't just get you to your dream, it changes you along the way. The person who starts the journey is not the same person who finishes it. Every time you endure, you grow tougher. Every time you refuse to quit, you deepen your resilience. Every time you rise after falling, you strengthen your belief in yourself. The dream you build through persistence isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you become. So when you feel tired, when the road feels endless, when the dream feels too far, remind yourself that every great success story is also a story of persistence. The heroes you admire weren't the ones who had it easy. They were the ones who refused to stop. And maybe, just maybe, you are closer to your breakthrough than you think. Maybe the gold lies just 3 feet beneath your feet. Maybe your next step is the one that takes you to the summit. But you will never know unless you persist. There comes a moment in every journey when the weight of the dream feels heavier than the excitement that began it. At first, the vision is intoxicating. You can almost taste the success, feel the applause, see the doors opening. But as days turn into months and novelty fades, something deeper is required to carry you forward. That something is faith. Not faith in circumstances, not faith in luck, but faith in yourself and in the process that unfolds slowly, often invisibly. Because the truth is, big dreams are not built overnight. They are shaped in the silence, molded in the unseen hours, and nurtured by the unshakable belief that even when nothing seems to be happening, everything is. Think about a seed buried in the soil. For weeks, perhaps months, nothing appears above the surface. To the impatient eye, it looks as though nothing is happening. But beneath the soil, the seed is breaking open, sending out tiny roots, anchoring itself deeply before it dares to rise. If you judge the seed too soon, you believe it had failed. But those hidden roots are the very foundation of the towering tree it is destined to become. Your journey works the same way. The effort you put in, the hours no one sees, the struggles you quietly endure, those are the roots taking hold. Faith is what allows you to keep watering your seed when the soil looks barren, to keep nurturing your dream when there are no visible signs of progress. There's a story of a man who grew bamboo. For years, he watered the ground faithfully, yet there was no sign of growth. Imagine how discouraging that must have felt. Day after day, giving effort with nothing to show. But in the 5th year, the bamboo suddenly shot up over 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Was the growth really sudden? No, it was years in the making, hidden beneath the surface, building strength where no eye could see. That is the rhythm of dreams. You work and wait, sometimes wondering if you're wasting your time, but the day comes when the results explode into your reality. Faith is what sustains you in those years of invisibility. Many people give up not because their dream is impossible, but because they lose faith during the silent years. They confuse delay with denial. They assume that just because results aren't immediate, nothing is happening. But what if the silence isn't a sign of failure, but a sign of preparation? What if those quiet seasons are the very ones building the strength, patience, and resilience you'll need when the breakthrough finally comes? I think of a young athlete training for the Olympics. She wakes up before sunrise, runs in the cold, lifts weights when her body aches, and practices routines over and over until her muscles burn. Yet for years, there are no medals, no recognition, no guarantees. Why does she keep going? Because she has faith. Not blind faith, but a deep trust that these small, unseen moments are sculpting her into the champion she is meant to become. That faith doesn't remove the struggle, but it makes the struggle meaningful. Without it, she'd quit long before the moment she steps onto the podium. Faith also asks us to see ourselves differently. Too often, we carry self-doubt like a shadow, whispering that we aren't enough, that our dream is too big, that others are more talented or more deserving. But faith silences those lies by reminding us that greatness is not reserved for a chosen few. It is available to anyone willing to believe and persist. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." That's the power of belief. What you hold in your mind shapes the reality you create. There's a childlike wonder in faith, a trust that even when we can't see the whole staircase, we take the first step. Martin Luther King Jr. captured it perfectly when he said, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." Too many of us wait for guarantees, for certainty, for the full picture before we move. But life doesn't work that way. The doors open only after you knock. The path reveals itself only after you take the first step. Faith is not about having all the answers. It's about moving forward despite not having them. Think of an artist painting on a blank canvas. At first, the brushstrokes look random, even messy. If you stop there, it would seem like chaos. But the artist knows the bigger picture. With each stroke, the masterpiece begins to take form. Your life works the same way. In the middle of the process, it may look unclear, even chaotic. But faith reminds you that the picture isn't finished yet. One day, you'll step back and see how every stroke mattered, how every season, even the painful ones, was part of a masterpiece. Sometimes faith isn't about believing in the outcome. It's about believing in your ability to endure. It's about saying to yourself, I don't know how this will work out, but I know I will keep going until it does. That kind of faith transforms fear into courage. It turns uncertainty into opportunity. It shifts your focus from what might go wrong to what might go right. And in that shift, you find the strength to keep building, step by step, until the dream takes shape. And maybe that's the real secret. Faith is not a feeling, it's a choice. Feelings come and go. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, and other days you'll feel like giving up. But faith isn't about feelings. It's about deciding to keep moving, even on the days when you don't feel like it. It's about showing up, trusting the process, and holding on when everything around you says let go. Ask yourself, what would happen if you believed a little more in yourself today? What would happen if, instead of focusing on how far you still have to go, you trusted that every step you take is bringing you closer? What if you chose to see the invisible growth happening beneath the surface of your life right now? That choice could be the very thing that changes everything. So when the nights are long, when progress feels invisible, when doubt whispers that you should quit, remember the bamboo, remember the seed, remember that growth often hides before it reveals itself. And above all, remember this, the universe does not waste effort. Every step, every act of faith, every small choice to keep going is building something within you and around you. You may not see it yet, but one day you will look back and realize that the season you thought was silence was actually the season your roots were taking hold, and it was faith that carried you through. When you walk away from this moment, remember this. Faith is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Faith is the fuel that keeps you moving when the road feels endless. Faith is the voice that whispers, keep going, when everything around you says, give up. Faith is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for the whole path to appear. Don't wait for permission. Life is happening right now, and every second you hesitate is a second lost. Choose faith. Choose action. Choose to believe that the small steps you take today are shaping the future you dream about. You are stronger than your doubts. You are bigger than your fears. You are closer than you think. And the world is waiting, not for someone else, but for you to rise, to act, to build, to believe. So hold on. Keep moving. Keep believing. Keep the faith alive, even when the nights are long and the results are invisible, because your breakthrough could be just one more step away. And when doubt tries to pull you back, remember this. Dreams don't die in the darkness. They grow there. The question is, will you have the faith to see them through? Your support means everything if this resonated with you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you remember nothing else, remember this. Small steps may look invisible today, but they are building the future that will one day make the world stop and wonder how you do it. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.